The story opens with a man running frantically through a hospital corridor. He is Kang-il, a firefighter who has just received the most painful news of his life. His wife has passed away. Overcome with uncontrollable tears, Kang-il repeatedly calls his wife's name as he holds her body in his arms. 3 days later, a female doctor named Miso resumes her daily routine at the hospital alongside her close friend, Hyunju. Miso examines a female patient who complains of severe headaches. Hyunju notices suspicious bruises, leading them to suspect domestic violence. Miso concludes that the headaches are caused by shock and exhaustion. This conclusion enrages the patient's husband. He feels his wife has not received a thorough examination and accuses Miso of making a one-sided decision. Shortly afterward, the fire department receives an emergency call. The victim turns out to be the same patient, who suddenly collapses. In panic, her husband contacts the fire department. It is then revealed that Miso made a misdiagnosis. The patient suffered a ruptured cerebral blood vessel and is now in critical condition. Consumed by anger and grief, the husband lashes out at the hospital and demands Miso take responsibility. Kang-il is ordered by his captain to calm the man down, but the husband loses control and attacks Kang-il before eventually realizing his mistake. The incident puts Miso's medical license at risk due to a lawsuit filed by the patient's family. Miso and Hyunju are forced to face legal proceedings, with the worst possible outcome being a fine for Hyunju. Meanwhile, Miso faces the possibility of losing her career. With the help of a lawyer, she is given one final chance. Miso is advised to persuade Kang-il to provide testimony in her favor. If Kang-il agrees to testify, the prosecution's case would weaken. Confidently, Miso visits the fire station and approaches Kang-il with a gentle demeanor before explaining her intentions. However, Kang-il refuses, as he never intended to press charges against the patient's husband. To Kang-il, the husband's reaction was a natural expression of fear and concern. Realizing her persuasion has failed, Miso becomes determined to win Kang-il's heart and approach him as a woman instead. One day, Miso is caught in traffic and unexpectedly runs into Kang-il while he is on duty. She steps onto the road to help the firefighters in order to catch his attention. Kang-il calls the encounter fate. Miso continues trying to grow closer to him, but Kang-il remains distant, unable to understand her hints. Eventually, Kang-il directly asks what her true intentions are. Without hesitation, Miso confesses her feelings and asks Kang-il to date her on the spot. Instead of being moved, Kang-il becomes angry, slaps his own forehead in frustration, and walks away. Running out of options, Miso chooses a reckless approach. She stands on the edge of a bridge, pretending she is about to jump into the river. Kang-il, assigned to handle the incident, tries to stop her. When Miso slips and nearly falls, Kang-il manages to grab her legs. Because of her actions, Kang-il reports Miso to the police. She faces a fine of 2 million won, but attempts to bribe the officers by promising to introduce them to Hyunju. There, Miso notices a poster recruiting community service volunteers for the fire department. Miso asks to have her fine replaced by participation in the program. She officially joins and drags Hyunju along with her. Her goal is clear: to get closer to Kang-il. Hyunju's presence immediately catches the attention of Yong-soo, Kang-il's colleague. Yong-soo uses the training sessions as an excuse to get closer to her, but his plan is cut short when the captain orders them to respond to a call. At the welcome party for the new members, Miso openly declares her feelings for Kang-il. Her co-workers support her enthusiastically, even though Kang-il gives no response. Miso keeps looking for opportunities to be alone with Kang-il. Luck seems to be on her side when not a single taxi stops for Kang-il that night. Miso offers him a ride, but Kang-il refuses. Shortly after they part ways, Miso suddenly collapses. Seeing this, Kang-il panics, carries her in his arms, and rushes off. When Miso regains consciousness, she smiles briefly before explaining what happened. As a doctor, Miso explains that she fainted due to extreme stress, not from work, but from emotional strain. Kang-il initially suspects he has been deceived, but eventually agrees to have a drink with her. When Miso threatens that she might faint again, Kang-il drinks excessively and ends up in a fight with another man. Miso joins in to defend him and injures their opponent. In the end, everyone is taken to the police station. Miso is detained temporarily, while the intoxicated Kang-il is taken home by the captain and his colleagues. The next day, Yong-soo explains what happened the night before. Feeling guilty, Kang-il goes to the police station to pick Miso up. Thanks to her good relationship with the officers, Miso has already been released. Kang-il takes her home, and during the trip, Miso learns that Kang-il was once married and has recently lost his wife. Miso tries to comfort Kang-il by saying that she, too, has lost her mother and learned to let go. However, the lie is exposed when her mother suddenly calls her. Once again, Miso fails to win Kang-il's heart. Miso pours out everything she feels to Hyun-ju, wondering why Kang-il doesn't like her. Even so, she refuses to give up and continues fighting for his heart. Around that time, a gas leak occurs at a factory, and the fire department is dispatched to handle the situation. The situation becomes more intense when Yong-soo is injured by the leaking gas. Miso arrives and stitches his wound on the spot since it is impossible to take him to the hospital. After the crisis is finally under control, the firefighters prepare to leave. However, Miso is left behind after her fainting symptoms return. None of the firefighters, including Kang-il, notice it at first. Once Kang-il realizes Miso is missing, he immediately goes back to get her. At the same time, the factory resumes operation and the automatic doors close, trapping Kang-il and Miso inside. The temperature inside gradually drops. As they struggle against the cold, Miso asks whether Kang-il ever liked her before losing consciousness. Kang-il takes off his jacket, wraps it around Miso, and holds her tightly to keep her warm. Meanwhile, the others at the hospital begin to realize that Kang-il and Miso have not returned. Sensing that something is wrong, they rush to find them and discover both unconscious. Fortunately, they are still alive and manage to be rescued. After that incident, Miso realizes that her feelings for Kang-il are truly genuine. Despite their rocky beginning, the two slowly fall in love. Miso begins to open up, telling Kang-il why and how she became a doctor. Kang-il also shares many stories about his life as a firefighter. However, their relationship starts to fall apart because Kang-il cannot let go of memories of his late wife. At the same time, Miso is once again faced with the reality that her trial is approaching. Caught in this dilemma, Miso is forced to return to her original plan, persuading Kang-il to testify for the patient who sued her in order to protect her career as a doctor. Once again, Kang-il firmly refuses. He tries to convince Miso that doing so will only lead to regret in the future. Kang-il urges Miso to acknowledge her mistake, but her selfishness prevents her from accepting it. Eventually, they decide to part ways. Unable to forget his wife, Kang-il recalls the past, the moment he faced a terrible dilemma between saving victims on duty or rushing home to his sick wife. His decision to save the victims ultimately cost him his wife, who could not be saved in time. Meanwhile, the patient's condition grows increasingly critical. The doctors admit there is little they can do. The despair drives the patient's husband to attempt suicide at the hospital. Miso and Hyun-ju, who are present at the time, rush to save him. Fortunately, the man survives. Miso continues her community service duties even though her relationship with Kang-il remains strained. She considers fixing things between them, though deep down she feels exhausted by everything. Kang-il, too, remains trapped in guilt over his wife's death. In the end, they truly go their separate ways. Realizing Kang-il's regret, the captain tries to enlighten him by asking a question. If both of your parents were in danger, whom would you save first? The answer is the one closest to you, because that choice is not a mistake, but the best possible decision. Meanwhile, Hyun-ju advises Miso to let go of the past and focus on her present life. After repeatedly fainting, Miso is diagnosed with a mild brain tumor that can be cured through surgery. After deep reflection, Miso finally resolves to take responsibility. She meets the patient's husband, admits her mistakes, and apologizes sincerely. The earlier suicide attempt makes the man realize that being alive is a blessing. He accepts his wife's condition and withdraws the lawsuit against Miso. Even so, he admits he will never truly forgive her. Miso breaks down in tears, realizing the weight of her mistakes, and ultimately resigns from her job as a doctor. She meets Kang-il one last time in a church, confesses her love sincerely, and then leaves. One day, Kang-il is once again consumed by guilt and recklessly enters a dangerous mission to rescue a worker trapped beneath a collapsed building. The situation is extremely unfavorable. The building could collapse further if they move the victim. Kang-il stubbornly insists on saving him, angering his teammates because it is essentially a suicide mission. To Kang-il, saving the victim is a way to atone for his past sins toward his late wife. Reluctantly, his teammates comply. Amid the uncertainty, the victim talks about the wife and child he loves dearly. At that moment, Kang-il finally realizes that Miso is the person he truly loves now. After successfully rescuing the worker, the building begins to collapse, trapping Kang-il and the victim inside. Under the heavy rain, the firefighters outside can do nothing but wait helplessly. The next morning, as Miso heads to the hospital with Hyun-ju for her scheduled surgery, a radio news report announces the apartment collapse and mentions Kang-il as one of the victims. Shocked, Miso panics, gets out of the car, and rushes to find him, unsure whether he is alive. Meanwhile, the rescue team arrives at the scene and prepares to use heavy machinery to dig through the debris. Other firefighters stop them, fearing it would endanger the victims. Fortunately, Kang-il and the worker are found just before the machines are used. Both are safe, but Kang-il is unconscious and taken to the hospital. While unconscious, he dreams of Miso teasing him, trying to wake him up with a leaf, just as she once did to him. Kang-il later wakes up, jumps out of the ambulance stuck in traffic, and rushes to the hospital where Miso used to work. She is no longer there, having already resigned. Kang-il continues searching until he sees Miso running aimlessly across the street. Kang-il calls out her name, runs toward her, and pulls her into a tight embrace. As she cries, the two reunite at last, sharing the affection they had long held back. The film ends with the captain warning a new recruit not to fall asleep on the first day. That new recruit is Miso, who now stands beside Kang-il, working together as a firefighter.